Believe it or not, everything I'm about to share really happened. Even now, months later, I can still feel how every detail of this nightmare burns inside me. My name is Charlotte Cotter. I'm 30 years old and I work as an architect in Denver. My entire adult life has been one long attempt to prove that I could make it on my own. I left my parents' house when I was 18 and never asked them for a dime after that. You'd think that would earn respect. But no. To my parents, I was always the independent one who doesn't need help. All the attention, all the resources, they always went straight to my younger brother, Ryan. Ryan is 25. He calls himself a musician, but in the last 10 years he hasn't finished a single song. Every time he started something, college, basketball, music school, he quit halfway. My parents excused it by saying he's just trying to find himself. Meanwhile, I work morning to night at 3 part-time jobs to pay for architecture school without taking out loans. In high school, I was on the robotics team, I won math competitions, I drew building designs for scholarships. But all I ever heard from my parents was, "You'll be fine on your own, Ryan needs the support." It was like that my whole life. When Ryan turned 16, he got a brand new car even though he only managed to pass his driver's test on the 11th try. Me? I rode the bus and saved every penny I could. At 20, I was sleeping 4 hours a night, balancing a waitress job with an internship at an architecture firm. Ryan, meanwhile, blew through our parents' money buying expensive guitars that sat collecting dust in his room. When I finally graduated, I landed a job at one of the best architecture firms in Denver. My coworkers complained about student debt, and I felt proud that I didn't have any. But the same day I brought home an award for Project of the Year, my dad looked at me and said, "Well, you just got lucky, being in the right place at the right time. Ryan has a much harder path." Those words cut deeper than anything. I had always dreamed of owning my own home. Not a mansion, but a quiet place where I could plant flowers and breathe mountain air. After nearly 10 years of renting cramped apartments, I finally scraped together enough for a down payment. It wasn't new construction or some fancy 2-story place. No, it was a fixer-upper from the 1950s on the outskirts of Denver. The roof leaked, the pipes were ancient, and the basement smelled like damp concrete. But there was a yard and a small porch that looked out toward the Rockies in the distance. For me, this wasn't just a house. It was proof that I had done it all myself. My grandmother, Margaret, had been my safe haven growing up. Whenever my parents' favoritism toward Ryan became unbearable, I would run to her house. She'd bake cookies and tell me, "You're stronger than you think, Charlotte. One day your strength will be your greatest weapon." When I signed the papers and got the keys, I swear I could hear her voice. This wasn't just shelter. This was my trophy. Of course, my parents didn't share my joy. My mom only shook her head and said, "Oh, that place will need so much work." My dad frowned. "Are you sure you didn't overpay?" And Ryan, smirking, added, "At least buy yourself a dishwasher, living like it's the Stone Age. Then again, you're always at work. What do you even need a kitchen for?" I smiled on the outside, but inside it stung. For the next 2 years, I poured my soul into that house. I painted the walls, sanded the floors myself, and planted roses in the garden in memory of my grandmother. And just when I finally felt like I had found my place in the world, the worst betrayal of my life was waiting around the corner. At work, an incredible opportunity came up, a 2-week trip to Tokyo to present my project to international partners. Success there could mean a promotion and new contracts. I prepared for months. Even though the trip would make me miss the blooming of my roses, I knew I couldn't pass it up. That's when my mom said, "Leave us the keys, we'll look after the house." Every instinct screamed no. But deadlines and that nagging sense of trust and family won out. The night before I left, Ryan called me. His girlfriend of 3 months had just dumped him, and he sounded like a character in some bad soap opera. "I need to get away, Char. Europe, Iceland, some music festival, I don't care. I just have to show her I'm living my best life." I asked, "And how exactly are you planning to pay for that?" He sighed. "Mom and Dad said they can't help right now, but it's so unfair." I left the next morning, keys with my mom, not knowing I had just signed the death warrant for my dream. 2 weeks in Tokyo were exhausting but successful. When I flew home, all I wanted was to collapse in my own bed and breathe in the scent of fresh wood. But when I pulled up to the house, the lights were off, the locks were changed, and my keys no longer fit. I called my dad. "Dad, I'm at the house. My key doesn't work. What's going on?" There was silence. Then he said, "Come to our place. We need to talk." In that moment, I felt my whole body go cold. And that was just the beginning. When I pulled into my parents' driveway, I already knew something was terribly wrong. My mom was pacing the kitchen, moving cups from one spot to another like she couldn't keep still. My dad sat stiffly in his recliner, pretending to watch TV but never looking at the screen. And Ryan was sprawled on the couch, grinning, swiping through photos on his phone. "Check this out, Char," he said without even saying hello. "This is the infinity pool, and here's the bungalow right over the water." The service was insane. He shoved his phone in my face. Picture after picture, Ryan laughing with a drink in his hand, Ryan posing at a luxury resort, Ryan in a club with lights flashing behind him. I just stared at him. "Where did you get the money for this?" I asked slowly. My dad muted the TV. His voice was flat, almost casual. "We had to make a decision. We sold your house." The words hit harder than any punch. My knees nearly buckled. What did you just say?" My mom jumped in, almost frantic. "Charlotte, please try to understand. Ryan was going through such a rough time. He needed this trip to heal. And you'll have another chance. You're young, successful, you have a good job. You'll buy another house someday." I felt my chest tighten. My house wasn't just a roof. It was years of saving, every late night, every sacrifice. "You had no right," I said, my voice shaking. "That house was under a mortgage. I'm the only borrower on the loan. You couldn't have sold it." My dad waved his hand like I was being dramatic. "When you have the keys, and all the documents are sitting right here in the home office, you'd be surprised what you can do. We worked with an agent who knows how to handle these things. You forged my signature. You committed fraud." My mom's eyes flashed. "Don't talk to us like that. We did what was best for the family. Ryan needed support. You're always fine. You'll land on your feet. The support." I shouted. "You destroyed me. You sold everything I worked for so he could sip cocktails on the beach." Ryan smirked, leaning back like this was some big joke. "You're just jealous, Char. I finally got to enjoy life for once. What do you even need a house for? You're always working." I couldn't take it anymore. My hands were trembling so badly I grabbed my bag just to keep from screaming. Without another word, I walked out the door. That night, I showed up at my best friend Rachel Miller's apartment. We had been friends since college, and she was the one person I knew I could count on. She opened the door, took one look at my face, and pulled me into a hug without asking anything. I told her everything, every disgusting detail. The fake sale, the resort vacation, the new car my parents had bought themselves with the money. Rachel's jaw dropped. "Charlotte, that's not just betrayal, that's a crime. They forged your name, they stole your property. You need to go to the police, right now." I buried my face in my hands. They're my parents. I don't even know where to start, but it feels like they ripped my life out from under me. That house was the symbol of everything I've accomplished. Rachel gripped my hand, her eyes fierce. "You are not alone in this. I'll go with you. We'll figure it out. They can't just walk away from this, not this time." That night, I barely slept. My mind replayed the betrayal over and over, my father's cold tone, my brother's smoke grin. And somewhere in the dark, I heard my grandmother's voice again. "You're stronger than you think, Charlotte. Your strength will be your greatest weapon." I realized she was right. I would need that weapon now more than ever. And this was only the first step in the war my family had started. That night at Rachel's place, I barely slept. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, my mind running in circles. How could they even pull this off legally? The house was under a mortgage. The deed was in my name. My parents couldn't have just walked into a bank and sold it. By sunrise, I had a plan. I wrote it down step by step like a blueprint for a project. First, call the bank. Second, contact the title company that supposedly handled the closing. Third, file a police report for identity theft. Fourth, check with the county recorder's office for every document tied to my property. Fifth, get a real estate attorney who knew how to fight dirty in court. At 8 sharp, I dialed my mortgage bank. After verifying my social security number and birthday, the customer service rep's voice shifted. "Ms. Carter, I see here that your loan has been paid off in full as of last week." My heart stopped. "Paid off? What do you mean paid off? I didn't authorize that. The payoff came from a title and escrow company called Summit Title and Escrow. We received the funds, closed your account, and recorded it as paid in full. Congratulations." Her chipper tone made me want to scream. "Who requested the payoff? Who signed the documents?" She hesitated. I'm not allowed to disclose details without proper authorization, but the escrow file number is -48,213. The contact officer is Cara Nichols. You'll need to speak with them, and him. Carter, her voice softened. If you believe there's been fraud, you need to file a police report immediately. I can also note your account with a fraud alert. I thanked her, my hand shaking, and hung up. Next call, Summit Title and Escrow. After a long hold, a woman answered. This is Cara Nichols, escrow officer. How can I help you? This is Charlotte Carter. According to your records, you closed a sale on my house. I never signed anything. I never authorized any representative. You've been scammed. There was a pause. Ms. Carter, I can't release private file documents without proper verification or request from law enforcement, but her voice dropped. If you suspect a forged signature or identity theft, please bring us a police report. With that, I can place a hold on the disbursement and notify our underwriter. It wasn't much, but it was something. Rachel drove me to the police station. At the front desk, as soon as I said the words real estate fraud, I was led to a detective's office. Her name was Lieutenant Lee Ramirez. She had the calm, steady look of someone who had seen way too many families torn apart by greed. Start from the beginning, she said, clicking on a recorder. I told her everything, the Tokyo trip, the changed locks, my father's confession, Ryan's vacation, the new car, the bank's payoff record, the title company. Rachel added details about my parents having access to my personal papers at the house. Ramirez nodded slowly. This is textbook mortgage fraud, likely a forged power of attorney or a remote online notarization with fake ID. I'll open a case. You'll get a report number. Use it everywhere: bank, title, credit bureaus. You also need to freeze your credit files and file an identity theft report with the FTC. She slid the papers across the desk. This is going to be a long road, a mess, Carter, but with what you're telling me, you have a strong case. Our next stop was the county recorder's office. A clerk pulled up the property records, printed them out, and slid the stack across the counter. My stomach flipped as I scanned the pages. There it was, a limited power of attorney filed 2 weeks before my Tokyo trip, supposedly giving my mother, Linda Carter, authority to correct and execute any documents related to the conveyance of real property. The listing agreement signed with an agent named Wallace. A warranty deed transferring my house to a couple named Parker. A release of deed of trust showing my mortgage was paid off. And then I saw the signature on the power of attorney. Supposedly mine. It didn't even look close. Rachel leaned over my shoulder. That's laughable. They didn't even try to match your handwriting. But to me, it wasn't funny. It was nauseating. Back at Summit Title, I met Cara Nichols in person. She was professional but clearly uncomfortable. We've already placed a hold on the disbursement, she said. Our underwriter has been notified, but Ms. Carter, I need to be clear. In the file, there's a valid remote online notarization session. Charlotte Carter presented a driver's license, answered security questions, and signed electronically. My chest burned. I was in Japan. I couldn't have done that. I understand, Cara said. The good news is, our written sessions are recorded. We've requested the video from the provider. If it wasn't you, that's hard evidence. In the meantime, we've also flagged the file because the sale proceeds were wired into an LLC account, talesofrevenge Ventures. Rachel whispered, LC, Linda Carter. I gripped the table so hard my nails dug into the wood. That evening, Rachel and I met with attorney Mason Blake. He specialized in real estate disputes and didn't waste time sugarcoating. In most states, he explained, if a signature is forged, the deed is void ab initio, meaning it never legally transferred ownership, even to innocent buyers. That's the good news. The bad news is, until a judge rules, the Parkers are listed as the owners. You can't just move back in. Here's the plan. We file a lawsuit to void the power of attorney and deed, record a list pendants to freeze the property in the system, and get a temporary restraining order to stop any further transactions. We also loop in the title insurance company. They'll want to fight with us, because otherwise they'll have to pay the Parkers back. He scribbled notes on a pad. Bring me everything: recorded documents, police report, screenshots from Ryan's social media, proof you were in Japan. We'll build the case brick by brick. For the first time since stepping off the plane, I felt like maybe I wasn't alone in this. That night, Rachel made me tea and handed me an old envelope she had saved from my office. I grabbed this when you moved in with me. Look, it has your grandmother's handwriting on it. On the front it said, open only if the family ever harms you. My hand shook as I opened it. Inside were copies of older legal documents, a trust, a contact card for a lawyer named Harrison, and a note in my grandmother's neat script: "Be careful with any powers of attorney in your name. If they try to take what's yours, you'll need these." I sat frozen. My grandmother had seen this coming. As I set the papers down, my phone buzzed. A text from Detective Ramirez: "We got the RON video. It's not you. It appears to be a woman about your mother's age. We'll subpoena the full recording." Rachel squeezed my hand. "They've crossed the line for the last time. Now you've got proof, and we've got a fight to win." For the first time in weeks, I let myself breathe. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. But now I finally had the blueprints for war. Believe it or not, by the time I had the police report, the title company hold, and Mason's lawsuit in motion, I thought maybe things would calm down. I was wrong. That was when the real battle began. 2 days later, Detective Ramirez called. "We have the RON session video," she said. "I need you to come in and watch it. Just a warning, it's going to be tough." Rachel came with me. We sat in a dim office while Ramirez pulled up the file. On one side of the screen was the notary, reading from a script. On the other was a woman claiming to be Charlotte Carter. My stomach turned. She wore heavy makeup and a wig, holding up a fake driver's license with my name on it. She answered every security question. She smiled. She clicked the e-signature box. It was not me. But under poor lighting, to someone who didn't know me well, it could pass. Rachel cursed under her breath. I felt sick. Ramirez paused the video. "We'll subpoena the full session and have it analyzed. Between this and the forged power of attorney, we have more than enough for charges. But Charlotte, brace yourself. This case is about to get big. Title insurers, banks, even the buyer's attorneys are circling. Your parents won't go down quietly." 2 days later, I got a call from a woman named Julie Sanders, an attorney for the title insurance company. "Ms. Carter, I want you to know we're on your side," she said. "If this sale is voided for fraud, we're on the hook to reimburse the Parkers for the property value. That's hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, we have a vested interest in proving your parents forged everything. If you have evidence, texts, social media, anything, please send it to us." For once, money worked in my favor. The insurer would fight harder than anyone to tear down my parents' scheme. Meanwhile, Ryan couldn't keep his mouth shut. His Instagram was full of photos from the resort, him with champagne, him at a nightclub, him grinning in front of a Lexus. Under one post, a friend commented, "Bro, didn't you say you were broke?" Ryan replied, "Let's just say family resources got redistributed," smiling face with sunglasses. I screenshotted everything and sent it to Mason. That night my phone lit up with my mom's number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Her voice shook not with guilt, but with fury. "Charlotte, what do you think you're doing, dragging the police into this? Do you want your brother in prison? You're humiliating this family. Dehumiliating." I snapped. "You forged my name and sold my house. That's not humiliation, that's a crime. We are your parents," she hissed. "We have the right to make decisions for the family. You're selfish, you'll never understand." I hung up before she could finish. For the first time in my life, my hands didn't shake after an argument with her. The next day, someone I hadn't expected reached out, my cousin David. We'd never been close, but he looked nervous when we met for coffee. "Charlotte, I heard about the house. I'm not surprised," he said. "A few years back, your dad tried to get me to sign papers for Grandma's account. He said it was for a family trust. I refused. Later, Grandma told me herself, they'll try to take what isn't theirs, protect Charlotte." She knew. The words made my skin crawl. Grandma Margaret had seen this betrayal coming years before. At the next court hearing, Mason laid out everything: the RON video, the forged power of attorney, the LLC bank record showing proceeds wired to LC Family Ventures, screenshots from Ryan's Instagram. The judge ordered an immediate freeze, no further transactions, no access to funds, no alterations to the property record. My parents were summoned to appear in person the following week. It was a small victory, but one that tasted sweeter than anything in months. That night, my dad texted me. "You don't know what you've started. This could have been handled quietly. You brought this on yourself. If you keep pushing, you won't have a family left." An hour later, my mom sent her own message. "If Ryan hurts himself because of this stress, it will be your fault." I stared at the screen, numb. They weren't even trying to deny the fraud anymore. They were trying to weaponize guilt. But the guilt card didn't work on me anymore. Mason called the next morning. "They'll escalate now. Threats, emotional manipulation." Maybe even attempts to bribe you into a settlement. Don't fall for it. We're holding strong. Charlotte, I've seen families implode over far less. You need to be ready. I nodded. I was ready. 1 week later, I stood outside the courthouse as my parents walked past me. My mom refused to look at me. My dad glared like I was some stranger. And Ryan? He gave me a cocky little grin, like this was all just some game he was still winning. But as I stepped into the courtroom, I remembered my grandmother's words, "Your strength will be your greatest weapon." And I knew I was about to use it. The war wasn't over. In fact, it had just begun. Believe it or not, by the time we reached the first full hearing, I didn't even feel like I was related to the people sitting across the aisle from me. My mom and dad, stiff in their seats, eyes down. My brother Ryan slouched, smirking like this was some reality show. I sat beside Mason, my attorney, and told myself over and over, they are strangers now. The judge called the case. Ryan's lawyer, a man in a sleek suit with a voice like ice, began with, "The defendants acted in the interest of family. Ms. Carter voluntarily signed a power of attorney authorizing her mother to act on her behalf." Mason stood. "Your Honor, with permission, we'd like to play the notary recording." On the screen, the video began to roll. The fake Charlotte appeared, wig, makeup, bad lighting. She smiled, held up the ID, clicked through the boxes. "Not me." The judge frowned, glancing between the screen and me. "Ms. Carter, that is not you. No, Your Honor," I said clearly. At that exact time, I was in Tokyo. I have my passport stamps, plane tickets, and my conference badge. Mason added, "The police have confirmed biometric mismatch. The signature is forged. The power of attorney is fraudulent. The entire sale rests on a crime." The judge nodded once. Silence hung heavy in the room. Then came the bombshell. Detective Ramirez entered with new evidence, the money trail. Half the sale proceeds had been wired into LC Family Ventures LLC. The other half went directly to Ryan's personal account. Funds were used for international travel, luxury accommodations, and the purchase of a Lexus, she read. Ryan's face drained of color. My mom pressed her lips into a thin line. My dad wouldn't even look up. The judge leaned forward. "Until further ruling, the deed transfer is suspended, the property is frozen, the defendants are ordered to cooperate fully with law enforcement." It was the first official crack in their scheme. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like the ground under me was solid again. But Mason was right, this case wasn't only about the house. "You press me, Charlotte, there's more. Why were they so desperate to raise your footing? What else is at stake?" The answer came a week later. My cousin David showed up with a dusty box from his mother's basement. Inside were old papers tied with a ribbon. On top, in my grandmother's handwriting, "For Charlotte, if the family ever harms you." My breath caught. We opened the will together. My grandmother had left her house, her savings, and a small investment account all directly to me. And then there was an extra clause: if any family member attempts to harm Charlotte or contest her rights, the trust expands in her favor from a protective fund. I almost dropped the paper. She had seen it coming. She had written a safeguard into her legacy. Mason's eyes lit up when I handed him the documents. "This explains everything. Your parents knew about this. They knew they weren't in her will. That's why they tried to break you down, to prove you couldn't protect yourself if you looked incompetent. Maybe they thought they could challenge the inheritance later, but this clause, this makes the motive crystal clear." At the next hearing, Mason presented the will alongside the fraud evidence. The judge didn't hide his reaction. "This is a direct conflict of interest. The defendants not only stole Ms. Carter's home, they attempted to sabotage her inheritance." My mother's face crumpled in her hands. My father just sat frozen. Ryan tapped nervously on his phone, but his smirk was gone. The media got wind of it. A local headline read, "Denver family accused of defrauding daughter out of home." Ryan tried to save face online, but his own post only buried him deeper. Screenshots of him bragging about her family resources circulated everywhere. His so-called friends turned on him. The comments were brutal. For once, the golden boy couldn't talk his way out. Finally, the judge ruled. The power of attorney is void. The deed is void. Title reversed to Charlotte Carter. The mortgage reinstates as though never paid. The Parkers will be reimbursed by the title insurer. And the defendants Linda Carter, Daniel Carter, and Ryan Carter face criminal referral for real estate fraud and identity theft. I exhaled so deeply I almost collapsed. My house was legally mine again. After the ruling, my mom tried to approach me in the hallway. Charlotte, please, you must understand. We only did this for Ryan. He's fragile. He can't survive without us. I looked at her and said quietly, and you thought I would survive without a home, without a family? You made your choice. Now I've made mine. You're no longer my family. Her eyes filled with tears, but I didn't flinch. A month later, I was back in my house. The Parkers had moved out after their insurer compensated them. The place was empty and scarred, but it was mine again. Rachel and I spent weekends repainting the walls, fixing the garden, replanting roses for Grandma. Every time I walked past the fireplace, I remembered her words, "Your strength will be your greatest weapon." She had been right. My strength had saved me. And now I'll ask you the same thing I've asked myself 100 times. If you were in my place, would you forgive your parents and brother for the sake of keeping a family together? Or would you, like me, choose the truth and protect your future, no matter the cost? That's the end of today's story. Thank you so much for staying with me until the end. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so share them in the comments below. I truly enjoy reading what you have to say. If you'd like more, check out the full playlist linked in the description of this video. New real stories are on the way, and I'd love to share them with you. Hopefully, I'll see you next time. If this journey resonated with you, please hit subscribe and tap the bell so you'll never miss the latest stories. Thank you for listening.